What's up, everybody? Welcome to Reviews, where we review David Dobrik's podcast. All right, play that intro, bitch. David released his latest podcast on Thursday, and he talked about a few topics that are kind of funny, and some of them I just want to know a little bit more about that. He didn't really go into detail, but the first thing he talked about was Jason always getting in trouble all the time, and it's been a common theme with Jason. What do you think?
I think this particular one was at absolute nothing. It was a long segment, and it was basically he told her, "Let's get you out of here," and that she apparently was mad, but then she wasn't mad. So that was, I don't know. That was just.
I think it's one. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where a girl just gets mad for like a nothing, like it's like a nothing fight.
Right. No, and I get why that maybe she was, but it was just a nothing story. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't have included it in the podcast unless it was to go into the part about when she got mad at David. Now that was a real one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So in his podcast, David says that he was trying to be nice to Trisha and like order ahead because they were at a restaurant. I think Olive Garden. I guess that's like one of their favorite places to eat. And David said, "Hey, Trisha's running late, so I'll just call her up or text her and see what she wants." And then I think when she did finally get there, the food wasn't actually there, and I think she was expecting it to be there, I think, or something like that. And then since it wasn't, she like got a little bit upset and she sat somewhere else.
Yeah, she was she sat somewhere else. So, but I took a few things out of this. Well, I mean, so she apparently just thought that she was being bitched at because she was late, and I don't think he was doing that. But it sort of ties into him talking about the patience thing, that he probably called her to order for her because she was late, and at the same time, right after that, says that he always arrives late because he wants his food to be waiting for him. Look, have you ever heard anyone say that before? That's fucking ridiculous.
I've never heard anybody say that.
I deliberately arrive late. Like if I had to place my order like over the phone, I would probably be pissed at myself afterwards because I would probably want something different once I got there, and all my, I'd want to look at the stuff. So I wouldn't do that. But it was like he has a problem with patience. Fuck yeah, he has a problem with patience. He says, "I just don't want to be sitting at the table waiting for my food like everybody else in the fucking world."
I know that's kind of a bougie aspect of David.
Yeah, it sort of comes up. It comes up a few times, but then they started talking about his patience relative to his mom texting him about the podcast, and that's kind of cool. His mom's like, "Where's the fucking podcast?" Like she's paying attention.
Right.
So that's dope that they have that kind of relationship. And then he told his mom that Jason was scared to record because he's tired. And then his mom got mad at David and said, "He has 3 kids. You should be," because I don't know if you remember them arguing about I don't know necessarily arguing, but they were talking about the time that he records the podcast. And Jason brings it up all the time that I got to get up early. I don't want to record podcasts at midnight or 2 a.m. or 3 a.m.
Right.
Like
right.
you always do it. And David just doesn't care.
Right.
he's like, right. And so his mom's actually trying to tell him that too. Jason has 3 kids.
Yeah.
Like she's a mom. She knows what that means, but it doesn't matter. So this particular time though, apparently Jason just said, "Look, I'm tired. I don't want to do the podcast." And he waited for him. So maybe he's turning the corner or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I guess we'll see. But he only has 2 kids, by the way.
But didn't his mom say 3?
Maybe, but yeah. Okay. But yeah. Anyway, to continue the theme of Jason always getting in trouble. Yeah, it was kind of a boring segment in their podcast, but whatever. But honestly, it seems like Jason always is getting in trouble with Trisha, and I think it's just crazy. I don't know if you've been paying attention to their relationship via like David's vlogs, but it seems like she just gets mad at Jason for everything. And I don't think they should be dating. It's not fair for him, I think.
And I mean, everybody knows that a certain gender can tend to be crazy, and kind of kind of go off about everything. Any little thing. Like you hear the whole thing about, wait, wasn't he talked about on a previous podcast, Jason did, about his ex-wife, and one reason they weren't getting along, like they went to see a social worker because he always wanted to be on time and she was always late. And he felt like that was, first he said that was the biggest reason. Then he said, well, it's not the biggest reason, but so yeah, that's kind of his thing. But anyway, I don't think that was and then they started talking about the naked man jumping into an aquarium in Toronto. I don't know
yeah.
that was
he's just bringing up some random news because it's from his friend. And
who is Joe anyway?
I have no clue who Joe is.
Okay, I guess I got to watch more vlogs. I do think he's funny in the podcast, though. I like that.
Yeah, the 25-second thing.
Joe's Teeny Weeny Podcast. That's a perfect name too. I love it.
Right.
So when they were talking about the whole shark thing was just, I guess that was just humor.
No, it was just random. Yeah, it was just like, oh, my friend Joe just throws me some news articles, and I don't even know if they're real, and he just says them. So who knows why he does that? But he did talk about. So he did talk about. I don't know if it was part of the news thing, but he just randomly went into talking about the family that he always hangs out with, and Vardan, the little kid, and apparently this kid Vardan, because he's kind of got this like sub-famousness going on with being in David's vlogs, he's now on this app called Cameo, which is basically an app with a bunch of famous or semi-famous people, and they can do shout outs for people for a price. And Vardan's price is $10 a shout out, and he's been on it for about a week, and in 1 week he's made $720, and he's only 12 years old. And when I heard that, I thought that was pretty cool, actually. And David and Jason also think that's crazy.
And that's just gonna go up. It's just and probably after the shout out, in this episode. But yeah, that's pretty dope. And I guess I'm glad they elaborated like how big $720 is to a 12-year-old. That if just in 1 week you got $720. I mean, what did your mom give you a week? Well, she probably didn't give you anything. What did your friends' moms give them?
No, my mom at 12 years old, my mom maybe gave me, not every week, but maybe like $20, like for like candy and stuff.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, $720 in 1 week. And he's continuing to do this every week. So it's going to be crazy for him. But on the other side of this, who the fuck is asking for Vardan to shout out their name? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, anybody who's like David would make so much fucking money because, they're shouting out things like happy birthday and, something that people can show their friends at school. Oh, and they're also making voicemail messages, voicemail recordings.
Really? Okay.
So they can just anything you can think of that you'd want it to be on. So that's a cool app. I've known about it for I think about a year ago is when I first heard about that app.
Okay. Yeah, I checked it out, and not everybody's on there. I mean, mostly it's like either, I don't think it's like the top tier famous people too. There's only some. There's either the has-beens or like semi-famous people on there. And I'm not trying to be rude, but that's what's on there.
Okay.
Yeah, when I looked it up, I was trying to like look for some of my favorite famous people that I like listen to, either like an artist or thing, and I couldn't find Eminem, I couldn't find Taylor Swift, and I'm sure they're too busy to do those types of things. But what's crazy? When they were talking about this, what caught my attention was that David was saying that Vardan's teachers tell Vardan that the people he hangs out with, aka the YouTubers, David and the rest of the gang, and that they're bad influences on him. So what do you think about this?
I think they hate, like YouTubers hate like when people say that they're not famous and they go into that whole thing. because they're not on TV and they're not in film or whatever, but their success is still amazing.
Yes, it's a great. Yeah, it's great.
So I don't think that I don't think I think they are a bad influence, because they do a lot of crazy things and over the line things, and everybody can't do that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody can't get lucky enough to be in a situation where, they could avoid getting in trouble for what they're doing. So I think when you're young and you're around somebody a lot, and that's what that person becomes your role model. Those things are tough. Like I think about like when I'm around my nephew and my nieces, I tone some stuff down just because what I'm doing, they may want to do.
Right.
And so I don't think you can be honest. I'm curious what you think, but I don't think you can be honest and say that they're not a bad influence. It's not like um, they're live streaming a sermon in church.
Right.
Then you could say, wow, they're a really good influence. Look at all these followers. But see, then nobody would be following them. So
right.
I think if you were a kid, when you were 12 years old, if you were around David doing these things, it would change you.
It definitely would. Yeah. And I mean, if you consider that at 12 years old, even 13, 14, and you got a friend that's like 22 years old, or like, and another friend that's like 47, and obviously other older friends, and they're always around, they're swearing all the time and doing all of these crazy pranks. I mean, there's no way that you can consider it as good influence, right? Maybe, and in some instances, there's like, little projections here and there of them saying, hey, this is wrong, but we're just going to do it for a prank or something. But even then, I still think the overall influence is bad. And I mean,
because even though it's just a joke, was that the kid that they made to think that he was invisible?
Invisible, yeah.
I mean, that was funny as hell. But you could tell you're talking to a kid, and sometimes I have to think about it. Even if I'm talking to somebody that's 20 years old, I have to think about like some of the words I choose, until it's regular enough they believe it, and so I have to think like, okay, how are they going to take this? Because people still get their feelings hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Or so that situation, like the fact that even after he explained that he was never invisible, he still thought that maybe he was.
Right.
And so that sucks, because that's kind of, yeah. So I know people, I know YouTubers, because you hear them kind of complain about it all the time, about people saying that they're bad influence, or they do bad things. They do bad things. The people sleeping in Walmart, and
right, and they do it for views. And I don't think that, like Vardan, he's 12. I don't think he fully understands that they're doing it for views, for money, and like that is a way of making a living. He just thinks that this is all fun and games.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's like Ice Poseidon asking, cops where the prostitutes are. Well, that's funny, but that's
not politically correct. Right.
Right. So, and people are always getting in trouble now, because these things can come back and bite them later on, as society changes and starts to put more control on this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I can see, I bet you can imagine any one of your teachers saying the exact same thing.
Oh, of course.
If they knew you were hanging around him, they would say and feel the exact same thing.
Of course.
And the kid's parents probably don't feel that way, because they're in it too,
Yeah.
they're all in it together.
And they probably know that David is a good person, like, yeah.
And he is a good person, I mean,
yeah,
as good of a person as he can be.
Right. He just is dangerous, and he just does what he wants.
But do you remember that part where he asked his Jason's daughter's friend, who was 9 years old, where was her dad?
No.
Yeah. So he says I guess whoever this kid is, her mom is a super famous actress. Mm-hmm. And so he knew who his mom was. He didn't mention any names, so I don't know who it is. But her kid, David, was hanging out with her and asked her, where's your dad? And then she gives him this awkward face, And then she says, I guess she says, well, that was awkward, because she doesn't know her dad
Oh, okay.
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And Jason said, you always ask the worst question that you should ask. And he's like, but I like to ask that one, or something like that.
Oh, okay. I remember this. Yes.
Who he likes to ask, where's your dad? What? Like,
You know,
that's
he said he likes to ask. So yeah, he likes to ask questions that are like awkward, because I think he said it like it may. I don't know if it was for like making good content, or just like
that is not
it's
that
just
is
like a
not what he said.
no, not content. It was like a talent of his. Like, it just so happens that he always seems to ask like awkward questions.
Huh. Yeah, the question that you shouldn't ask, if
Is
Jason
what
was behind, yeah, is
yeah,
what he ends up asking.
exactly. Not for content, but yeah, he just is naturally drawn to asking those types of questions. Okay,
You know,
I mean, what? Oh,
no, I was just gonna say, I like when I like the part, they don't. It's good they don't do a whole bunch of them, but when they read an email or something from one of their viewers, and they had that email from Bailey, and her boyfriend's
oh yeah,
fri friends don't like her because she keeps them from doing stuff like drugs and drinking.
yeah,
It's funny because the kid's probably like 18 or 19,
right,
and drugs and drinking. I don't want to stop drugs and drinking, and they of course outed her name, so they know
right.
they know who the drugs and drinking is being done. But then David said, when your friends don't like your girlfriend, that screws everything up. We kind of, huh? So what do you think about that? Like the
N-
whole girlfriend.
yeah, I mean, no, I mean, I mean, it makes sense. You know, different people have different wants and needs from other people, and you know, she likes this guy, and the guy wants to be a part of his gang, and the gang wants him to be a part of the gang, and that's what they do. But she wants a serious relationship, so I just think maybe he's not ready.
And yeah, and each person sort of handles it differently. Like, you've been through some shit, I've been through some shit.
Right.
Like even Steven, like the shit that even just him, yeah, with you guys as friends. And so
Yeah.
I feel like each person, in this case the guy, uh just makes a call and says, either you decide
Yeah.
you're gonna cut off your friends, or you decide that, okay, I still want to be with you, but I'm still doing all this shit, and then she decides to leave or whatever. But that does suck, because that's like, everybody knows that experience. Everybody knows that I don't know. I've definitely had girlfriends that didn't like my friends, and I remember one time, one of my long term friends, she was like, I don't. Me and my friend were going out to dinner, and then I just called. I called her and said, "Hey, do you want to come?" And she's like, so then she was coming, and then a few hours before we were going to eat, she was like, I really don't like hanging out with him. Does he have to come? I was like, what are you talking about? He was coming first. And then at some point I had to tell her, look, I like you, but I like him too, and I knew him before you. So
Right.
that's the end of that discussion.
Right.
And that was the end of that discussion, because I just made it clear, like, I knew him before you. So if you want to go, then okay, go.
Right. And I don't think that, the Bailey girl who sent in that letter, you know, I don't know if like it's a new, like, she hasn't had too many relationships, but I mean, that's normal. That's typical, right? For like you to end up with somebody, and then when you finally meet the other side's friends, it's like, do they like me or not? And then there's that chance, right? And then
Right.
because she's stopping him from doing what his friends that he's been with for so long, she's trying to stop that like behavior. They're not going to like him for that, and that's like typical. And you're right, like it ends up being his decision
But
either.
but they've been together for 4 years.
Right.
I mean, so that's a long time. She had to go through the transition with him, unless he was sneaking around doing drugs, and then she just caught him one day.
Yeah, who
Um,
knows? Who knows? It could be complicated like that, or the friends never even tell her, like, for like the past 3 years, that they don't like her, and then finally they tell her.
so, but
Yeah.
that 23andme ad. Have you ever been tempted to do that, to
Yeah,
get?
actually, I'll tell you right now, it's so funny, but I've been thinking, I've been listening to David's podcast for a while, ever since you told me to listen to them. And I know they do these ads, and we'll talk about how they do their ads in just a second. But you just asked me, have I ever been tempted? And I've never been tempted until I heard it from David and Jason.
Really?
Yeah, I swear to God. Which lets me know that these stupid ads actually work in podcasts. Because I never thought like these ads would work, especially like because when you hear radio, it's like a prepared ad and it's like commercialized, right? But you hear it from these two fucking crazy people, and they're saying it the way they want to say it, and for some reason they make it sound so much fun.
Yeah, they do. They do a great job
Yeah, and
of
so
talking.
I don't think I would want to, but I'm curious at the same time, which is pissing me off because one, I want to know what the hell I could find out about myself, but I also don't want other people to have like my DNA, and I don't even know why I wouldn't want them to have my DNA. So it's just like a mixed feeling type of thing. So I'm curious and I'm not at the same time.
But it was Jason is always naturally funny, but how quick and how gifted this little 23andMe discussion just made me so impressed. Like how David says, "Hey, well, what did you find out?" And then he says, "Well, I found out that I'm part Klingon." So first of all, he comes up with Klingon just off the top of his head,
Yeah.
and then David's like, "What's that?" And he's like, "Oh, an alien kind of thing." And he says, "Well, how did you find out? How did you find out that?" And he says, "Oh, 23andMe." He said, "No, but what did they say? How did you find out?" Well, he said, "I got this little tail." So he immediately goes into this tail thing. But what was just genius, spontaneous comedy. It's already been that up to this point. Then he says that he was undressing in front of Josh.
Yeah.
And Josh says, "You have a tail." And then he said, "Yeah, let me see your tail." And he just had this whole planned out thing just came out of nowhere spontaneously. He says, "Let me see your tail." He says, "Oh, I don't have a tail." And then I said, "Oh, that's too bad for you." And he told me, he's like, "No, nobody has tails."
Yeah.
It's just you. So to me, that was just so fucking spontaneously funny that to go deep into like, oh, everyone has tails. And then he was depressed for 2 weeks because he found out that he was the only one.
Yeah. And I love how because I was thinking about it as that whole joke was going through itself, and then I was like, what would 23andMe think of what they're talking about right now? And then I love that David was like, "I just want you to know that you won't find out if you're an alien or not." And so I don't know how these these companies like pay them to do these ads, which they just they have a script, but they fully go off script like every time. I don't think they've ever went like just on a script and that they're done.
Yeah, I think I've heard it a few times where they have, but you know what I think? The reason people are listening to them is because they like their personality,
right?
And the way they do things. So I think them doing things like there's no relation to watching a TV show and hearing the prepared ad. There's no relation to the people you like in the show and the people that are doing the advertising.
Right.
In this case, you have somebody telling you about a product
who you already like.
Yeah, you already like, and you feel like you're interacting with them. You're not just watching a show. They're specifically entertaining you as an individual.
Yeah, and I love it. I love it, and I hope.
I think they're great.
I really wish more ads, even commercials, were kind of like what they do. I feel like it's such a better way to do advertising because, like I said, I would have never thought of doing 23andMe, but these guys make me want to for some reason.
Well, that's why that social marketing space is just so wide open because people are figuring out like that through a TV ad, you could never do what they're doing. No. I mean, you could. Well, okay, I'll take it back. Like sometimes I'll watch one of the late shows, and they'll all do it from time to time. Not often, but like before they go to a commercial, like Stephen Colbert will actually have a product in his hand and say, "Hey, make sure blah blah blah, and maybe do their tagline. So I guess they do it sometimes, and that's the perfect spot to do it. But companies are just trying to figure out how to use this, and it would be great. We'll never know, but it would be great to see on the other side okay, you got 500,000 people listening to the podcast. What was the return? Like, what is the return? I'm sure there's a return, but what is it?
Yeah, well, I mean, they keep using those custom URLs, so I'm curious as to what the usage of those URLs. Like, they talk about SeatGeek, and it's like, or like, what's the other one? I don't know, but they keep saying like, oh, the whatever, SeatGeek.com/views or something like that. So.
Right. And I'm pretty sure that we're gonna be up there pretty soon. So we might as well just start telling people. We'll see. It won't work on every site, but hopefully it works on some sites and starts working on more sites. But just /reviews, and you could save some money on some sites.
Yeah, just try it.
Yeah,
you never know. I mean, you could be listening to this 5 years from now, and we've got like every site under our belt. So just try it out.
So before you type SeatGeek.com/views, start with SeatGeek.com/reviews.
Yeah,
just try that first.
They give David $20 off for his customers. We give $21 off. So most likely you're going to choose us. But that brings me to the next thing they were talking about. I don't know why this came up, but Jason got so like ecstatic or like excited about telling David to finally buy a Ferrari. And I even know that he was trying to get him to buy one or that they were looking into getting one. But what was so surprising about this was that David was basically like, I'll get one when I find a one that I really want for a good price, right? And I'll let you, I think we had a small discussion about this before, but I'll let you go into that a little bit. But what surprised me more was that David makes roughly $5,000 to $8,000 per podcast. That just is crazy.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Actually, I don't know. I thought it would be more.
Really?
Well, I mean,
I thought it was like 1,000 to 2,000 maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess in my mind, I'm always thinking more. Because he's like a top tier YouTube talent. So in those situations, I'm like, I have no idea. Like all these other social media people that just do social media, that make videos, post on Instagram. How are they living off of it? Like, who's giving them money? Like, I mean, I don't know. With the exception of these ads actually tell you, okay, this is specifically how this guy's getting money.
Yeah.
Because there was a point where he was talking later on about the YouTube revenue and how he makes less money than his 6 of his other friends. But he doesn't. I mean, he doesn't like it, but he doesn't care so much because he gets most of his revenue through other sources, the podcast,
his merchandise and things like that. Yeah.
I wonder how much he makes off his merchandise, but that's pretty damn cool. But how? Okay, here's the question I have: how is Jason start at 1,000 per podcast and top out at 3,000 per podcast, and David is 5,000 and 5,000 to 8,000? What is up with that distribution?
Well, I just think, I mean, you have to admit, you can't deny it, but like David is the lead. He has the most attention. He has probably a huge audience, and I mean that's just it. And I know it wasn't this podcast, his recent podcast, but I just was listening to an older podcast, and Jason was saying, thank you. I know you found me in a comedy club and whatnot, and ever since then you've kind of taken me, and I'm either working with you or working for you. So there's this understanding that Jason is kind of like his partner, but / working for David, Yeah,
I get that, but when you do the numbers, I did the math, and it turns out if we just use the low number, $1,000, and $5,000,
right?
So a total of $6,000. That's 17% of the total is what Jason's getting.
And maybe he's okay with that. I don't know. Shit.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying whether I just think, I don't know. Maybe Jason doesn't own a calculator. I don't know. So 17%. You wouldn't have guessed that if you were to say, "Hey, what percent do you think Jason gets from the podcast?" You would never have said 17%.
Oh, no. I would have.
At least 20.
Oh,
At least
no.
20.
I would have said 15 to 20.
Really?
Yeah, I would have said 15 to 20.
But he has 3 kids.
Two. He has 2 kids.
2 kids. 2 kids. Yeah, you're right. He does have 2
Yeah,
kids.
2 kids. But yeah, anyway, so he really wants him to get a Ferrari, and David just doesn't care. Which I think it's cool, because if I was rich, which would be amazing to be, but I don't think I would just go ahead and buy it like a sports car or a Ferrari or like huge things. I just don't.
Yeah.
I just don't think I would.
I guess I want the experience. Like when I had my BMW, like I do admit I did enjoy the car. It took me a ton of time before I would actually get one. Basically, a friend had to make me get one, telling me he hated my other car, and then just some other events pushed me into it. But I did enjoy it. I guess I just have to see what it felt like.
I guess it's the same thing. Like you don't know that you don't know that you want it until like you get to use it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so interesting.
And then when they started talking about the cars, and he's using that Lamborghini. They started talking about his friend was in a Jaguar, and how he gets pulled over and cops pull him over and ask about the car. You know, it's funny, when cops pull me over, they do ask about the car, but they ask me how I got the car.
Yeah.
And so it's a little different experience that he has than I had, like when I had that BMW. But he thought, so that cop asked him how much did he pay for the car. I wonder why he didn't want to tell him. Like, the price of a car is public information,
right?
I never understood that. Like, if you ask that, I don't know.
I think.
What do you think?
I think David has a good understanding of how to, like. I guess I don't know what it's called. I don't know if it's like emotional or like just situational awareness of how to talk to somebody about those things. But maybe he was thinking, I told this cop, like, you know, like, oh yeah, this was like.
But that's not true, because he asked the cop if he could record it.
Okay.
Record him, and he said because he didn't let him record it, he didn't tell him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. There's just sometimes where I think David, like, he tries to like really like upset somebody.
But I mean, he would have done it if he could have recorded it and showed everybody the cop's reaction to how much he paid for it.
Yeah.
But that cop said he wasn't allowed to be recorded. So
right.
I mean, which makes
makes sense in the YouTube world. Yeah.
So here's something I've been meaning to ask you ever since I heard it. Do you remember him talking about hanging out with Miranda Cosgrove? Now, I don't really know who she is.
Oh, I watched it. I watched it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's in that last vlog?
Yeah.
I think his last vlog, I watched it, but I was doing something else, so I don't think I saw everything. And with his vlog, you have to watch everything.
Well, no, she was in the very beginning, so you didn't watch it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he like says, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna go see her." Blah 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 blah. It was like the first scene was him saying, "Oh, look who I texted," and then it went into this meeting.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask you. Why did I saw a tweet from somebody I know that wouldn't really know these people, or it usually just tweeting about sports and stuff.
Yeah,
but said that David Dobrik it was a retweet that David Dobrik broke the internet with Miranda Cosgrove. What happened? Like, what did something just nothing bad? I don't know.
Nothing.
Something blew up that got a whole bunch of people's attention that ordinarily wouldn't be paying attention to that.
No, I think that his video just went viral. But she was in Drake and Josh on Disney Channel, and obviously he hangs out with Josh, right? Or yeah, Josh. What's his name? Yeah, Josh Peck, right? Yeah, and
but he hadn't seen her in a while.
Right,
Josh
had 4 or 5 years, and so it was a surprise. And so he went and messaged Miranda, and she replied, and she was down to, like, meet up and then surprise Josh. And so it's been 4 or 5 years, and they finally got to reunite. But it wasn't like a big deal. It's just a cool reunion of and much freaking out because she's cute. But there was one funny part where one of his friends was like, "You got for David, right? Like, can you make sure to give it to her if she asks?" And then David actually said, "Hey, Miranda, my friend likes you, like, you know." And she's like, "Oh, well, he's kind of cute." And so he's like, "Oh, really? You think so? Like, can I give you his number?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'll take his number." And then David went and told him, like, she wants your number and she'll take it. And he was like, "Oh my God, I told you." Like, so it was,
I did see that.
yeah,
Okay, I
yeah, yeah.
remember that now.
Yeah, it was, but yeah, I don't know why it would be a really big one. I didn't really think that was a really big, exciting vlog, honestly.
Well, for me to hear about it in a different from a different place is what made me think that person doesn't usually do that. I wish I could remember who tweeted that out, but and then just two more things, I guess. The grandfather's ashes getting baked in cookies.
Oh yeah,
Do you remember that part?
yeah, but I heard about that actually before he even brought it up in the podcast. I saw it on like Google News or something, and I was actually curious how the fuck that happened.
But it's David's. This is one of those kind of enlightened moments. David said, Doesn't seem like it's a crime, because once you bake them into the cookies, then it's probably all good. But how could he think baking somebody's ashes into cookies and giving it to people is not a crime?
No, I understand where he's coming from. Like, obviously,
it's a crime.
No, but if like he's thinking, I think from what he said, he was saying that what if they didn't know it was ashes, right?
Right.
Like if they were like so young, I don't even know how old the girls were, but if they accidentally baked it and put in the cookies and distributed it to like their friends or classmates or whatever with no knowledge, like I don't see how that could be considered a crime. Like
no knowledge of what? That they accidentally did it?
Yeah.
If they accidentally did it, then they didn't know, and so then that would have to be proven. But it didn't sound to me like it was an accident. They deliberately did it.
Yeah,
that was my take.
And I think he was confused too. Like, did they accidentally do it? Like, they didn't realize it until later?
He said very early on, after talking about that story, that it doesn't seem like that's a crime. And then Jason said, "Well, it's poison," and he's like, "Oh, is it poison?" So if of course anything's poison that's not supposed to be in there. That's like baking cookies and putting weed in them and giving them out to you would get in trouble for that,
right?
If they don't know that, but
I mean, there's no I mean, like, okay, I get what he's saying, like, as far as it not being a crime. I think it's wrong, but
did you hear what he said? This would be a crime if she murdered her she murdered her grandfather, and so that she could put ashes in cookies.
Yeah. That was hilarious. Yeah. No, but I understand where he's coming from, where he thinks it's not a crime, because, like, yeah, you're right. If you put weed in cookies and then you just gave it to somebody without telling them that there was weed in it, then yeah, it's bad. But what if you like put in some other ingredient, but you didn't tell anybody? Like the ingredient of a person, yes, I understand it's wrong, but it's still I don't know how to explain this correctly because it sounds stupid, but it's just another thing in the cookies. Yes, it's a human person, but
wow.
But like I don't understand. But what if that was like a thing? Because like there are some places with cannibalism, and there's still some places like, I mean, what the fuck? What's her name gets a blood facial? Like they're using blood and injecting it into their face. Like you know what I mean? Am I making sense?
But they have to be. It has to be. You have to know what's being injected into your face. And
those
doctors,
guess so. Yeah, I guess so.
Many doctors have gotten in trouble because they fucked people's faces up. Like that's a big thing.
Right. Okay. I guess so. Yeah. I don't even know what the fuck they did, if it was an accident or not. But if they went into a jar and they knew it was ashes and they put it in there, was it a prank? I don't know. But if they knew, yeah, it's fucked up. And yes, then I consider it a crime. But if it was a complete accident, then I don't consider that to be a crime. But yeah, you'd have to prove that.
And last thing, what do you think about, like, first of all, so David just in the middle of the podcast said, "Oh, I've got the greatest idea for our next vlog is for them to dress like girls." And I watched that one.
I did
part of it anyway.
I did.
And Jason saying it doesn't work, David. It doesn't work. You know, it doesn't matter what we do. We're still going to look like dudes. And we tried this, and they have tried it like a million times.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. It was a little funnier, like with the guy coming over, like people coming up to the car or something. But man, I don't know why he's so insistent on that. What do you think? That is one thing, like short of, things that I don't like, period. But that for sure is one thing that I'm not a fan of guys dressing up as girls. I don't see how that's funny.
I think, I think that right there shows you who's in charge. David said, I want you to dress up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want you to dress up as a girl, even though he said it never works. It never works, you know? He said...
He probably said in the background, hey, do you like your 17%, or would 10 be fine?
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's one of those things where, like, if they don't have an idea, they kind of fall back on that, because they do that a lot.
What do you think about that? What's your opinion? Like, I hate it. I don't know what you think.
I think it's boring. I mean, like, it's especially if David's really thinking like, oh, you're gonna get in as girls. Like, I think that's stupid, because they really look like guys, and I just think it's dumb. I don't even think it's funny every time they do it. I mean, even this time, I know you said you watched it, but he didn't even follow them with the camera to get the reaction and hear it on camera, right? So, like, it was just them standing from afar, waiting in line, and being told, oh, sorry, guys, we just want to have a good night tonight. You know, that, which was a funny-ass response to saying, get the fuck away from us, you know?
Yeah, that was, like, one of the politest responses I've ever heard.
Exactly.
Like, everybody was super cool.
But, yeah, so it's just so boring. Like, and he didn't do it. I don't think he did it in a way that would be considered entertaining in terms of, like, maximizing it. He just said, oh, go to this one, and he filmed them from, like, the street.
And why the hell is that his go-to? Like,
I don't know.
I got a great, and he was excited. Like, oh, I got a great idea. Let's dress you up as girls. Like, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he thinks it's funny, but it's not. I don't think it is.
I don't think majority of people think seeing guys dressed up as girls is funny.
Yeah, I really don't. I don't know. David, if you're listening, can you tweet us and let us know? Or if you're using the Anchor app, just leave us a voicemail.
leave us a voicemail. That'd be best.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I think we covered all the topics of last week's podcast from David Dobrik and Jason Nash. And again, guys, this is the Reviews Podcast, where we review David Dobrik's podcast, and we give our opinions on it. And if you have any opinions as well, leave us a voicemail if you're using Anchor. And that's it.
My name's Mike.
My name's Not Chris.
The podcast you just heard was published with Anchor. Got something you want to say to the creator of this show? Send them a voice message using the Anchor app, free for iOS and Android.